Hey guys, what's going on? Megan here. Quick video on why competition increases testosterone. If you read my work or if you watched my previous videos, you know that out of the top things that you can do to increase testosterone naturally, competition is one of them. It's one of the things that I mention a lot, and I've gotten a lot of questions as far as not only the mechanism behind it, but just the practical answer as to why. Why is it that just the simple act of competing increases testosterone. And I'm going to explain that in this video. It's not just competing, it's actually winning. Winning increases testosterone. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not going to bring your testosterone that was from 500 to 1,000, right? It's not like a drastic, improvement. By competing chronically, definitely has its advantages. And obviously, if you're a natural person, if you're a natural trainee, anything that increases your testosterone is worth it. Naturally, of course. Why is it that competing increases testosterone? First, keep in mind, we live in a society where anything that makes you a man, anything that increases testosterone levels is pretty much looked down upon, and that includes competing. Um, as a male, competing is just part of our DNA. It's something that we do even for fun. Sometimes if you just look at the way boys interact, look at the way men interact, we like to compete, even with our friends. It's nothing personal. It's not always a life or death scenario, but it's literally in our DNA. It's part of how we evolved. But obviously, like I said, we live in a society where even competing is looked down upon. So, as I was saying earlier, the actual act of competing is actually winning, right? You got to win because actually, if you compete and lose, you actually have a reduction in testosterone. But the actual act of competing and winning, boost your T levels, and that could be through sports, that could be through physical competition, and in some cases, some studies even mental, competition. But why is it? So first, let's look at how testosterone is produced, right? I'm gonna skip a lot of the details because I made so many videos on testosterone that my old subscribers are just gonna get bored to death. But if you're new, just remember how testosterone is produced. It starts with your brain. I'm gonna skip the mid steps. Your hypothalamus, your pituitary gland, gonadotropin release hormone, blah 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 blah. Just know it starts with your brain, right? Your hypothalamus signals your pituitary gland to release luteinizing hormone, which goes to your balls and obviously converts cholesterol into testosterone. That's the short version. If you want the long version, watch my other videos when I go into the details, or just pick up a biology book. All right, now, why am I showing you this? Because it's important to realize that it starts with the brain. I repeat, testosterone production starts with the brain, not the testicles, the brain. The hypothalamus has to release gonadotropin releasing hormone. What does that have to do with competition? Simple. The brain has to sense a need for testosterone production or a reason for testosterone production. It doesn't just do it out of the blue. One of the things that the brain looks at is obviously your energy status, right? You guys know before your body invests in reproduction, which is the endocrine system, testosterone, whatever, your body has to first invest in survival, keeping your BMR, keeping your basic functions alive. So before your body invests into reproduction, it has to make sure that just your basic needs are taken care of, which is why when you're in a caloric deficit, your testosterone levels drop, right? Because your body's thinking, hey, smashing reproduction is not the priority right now. Let's focus on survival. And that's also why when you're in a caloric surplus, your testosterone levels increase, right? Because your body realizes, hey, leptin is good. This individual has more than enough calories and resources to not only provide for himself but for a family, and that's why your body starts increasing testosterone production based on your energy status. Now, what does that have to do with competition? Why is it that winning increases testosterone? Well, reason number one is simple, right? Access to resources. Guys, keep in mind, we've spent more time as cavemen and, hunters and gatherers than we have as men in a civilized society, right? If you look at the history of Homo sapiens, 90 to 99% of it was just us being in the wild, being hunters and gatherers, being cavemen, blah, 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 right? We've only been living in this modern society for about 1% of our entire existence. Sometimes even less, depending on how far back you want to go. So your brain is still operating, under the assumption that you're living in the wild. You have that caveman mentality. You're competing for resources, on and so forth. So when you win a competition, your primal brain thinks, hey, this guy now has access to resources. He's gonna have access to food. He's gonna have access to water, to shelter, So your brain increases your testosterone production. In fact, one of the videos that have coming up is on the placebo effect that I mention all the time. You got to understand, perception is a huge thing. Your brain just perceiving, you know, uh, that you're in a better situation socially starts to increase your testosterone levels. So when you win the competition, even if it's basketball or soccer or boxing or whatever, your brain actually thinks, "Hey, this guy just defeated a foe, and he now has access to resources." Even if that's not the case. The second reason is obviously fending off rivals, right? Because if you now have access to resources, now you got to protect those resources, right? So that's also why one of the benefits of increased testosterone is increased muscle mass, increased strength, increased bone density, all that stuff, all the things that make you stronger. Why? It's because your body's literally planning for the future. It's like, hey, this guy now has access to resources. He's gonna have to be able to protect those resources. And we see the same thing in animals. We see that in chimps, gorillas, birds, fish, you name it. The moment they start winning, the moment they win competition, the testosterone levels increase. And over time, as long as they maintain a dominant position, their physiology changes. For fish, they start to display colors. Other animals, they get bigger, stronger, just like humans. And like I said, it's a chronic thing, right? It's not something that's gonna happen overnight, but it's literally your body pushing you, in that direction. And finally, the third reason why your testosterone levels go up after you win a competition is common sense, right? In fact, it's the number one reason why you have testosterone in the first place, for reproduction, right? Your body thinks, okay, well, this guy's not in a position to reproduce. He has the resources, he has the ability to protect and defend those resources. Now it's time to reproduce, because remember, your testosterone levels go up. What else goes up? Right? Your sperm quality, your sperm quantity, your confidence, right? And eventually, down the road, your attractiveness. Remember, guys with higher testosterone not only are more confident, but are also more attractive to females. And that's all it boils down to. Don't let no one tell you otherwise, right? Life boils down to passing on your genes, right? Every single thing that we do, subconsciously or consciously, boils down to sex. As much as we live in a society that tries to ignore it, that's really all it boils down to. Remember, men have evolved to pass on their genes to as many partners as possible. Women is the opposite, but like I said, I'm not going to go off on a tangent here. So, those are the top three reasons why testosterone levels increase after competitions, and to be specific, after winning. So that's why year after year, I actually encourage men to keep competing. Like I said, it's not a drastic increase in your testosterone levels, right? It's not like you're gonna, double your T levels and be swole overnight. But like I said, any step in the right direction is good. Compete. Whether it's friendly competition, and keep in mind, video games don't count actually. Studies have shown that this type of competition only increases testosterone levels when you actually perceive that your social status went up. And for some reason, when people win at video games, they don't get the same increase in uh, in testosterone levels that we see when people actually win important things like sports, other forms of competition. And the interesting about this is that even if you think you won, there have done studies where people were actually fooled into thinking they won, even though the game was actually rigged in their favor. They still got the increase in testosterone, right? So it's not just a matter of effort; it's just a matter of perception. The moment the brain perceives that that you better, as shallow as it sounds, it increases your testosterone levels. It's the same thing with social status. Whenever someone gets a promotion, whenever people graduate, whenever a person is assigned in a leadership role, that person's testosterone levels also go up, right? So it's all about perception. So compete, right? Don't let society bully you into thinking that competition is bad and it's a sign of insecurity and blah blah blah. No, compete. Compete with your friends, compete with strangers. It's healthy. It's healthy mentally. Also, winning has positive effects on your mood. Don't forget your serotonin levels go up and all that. So winning is actually a very good antidepressant, believe it or not. So anyway, I hope this video helps. I wanted to keep it short and answer the questions as far as why competition and winning increases testosterone levels. Now, keep in mind, this is just a very small piece of the puzzle. There are a lot of other things you have to do to optimize your hormone levels. So, don't see that as like so the magic pill. It's a very, very small piece of the entire puzzle. but it's good to know nevertheless. Alright guys, don't forget to like the video, subscribe and hit the bell. Visit my website and grab a copy of my ebook and training program. Go to www.team3dalpha.com and don't forget to use the 40% off coupon code Nucleus Overload.